The Brat Pack came to be when journalist David Blum wrote an article in New York Magazine about the hottest new Hollywood actors and actresses who seemed to orbit each other in the biggest films of the 1980s. This pack should not be confused with the original Rat Pack, comprised of the Kings of Swing, Dean Martin, Frank Sinatra, and Sammy Davis Jr. This little nickname was not meant to be complimentary, and many of the actors in the Brat Pack knew it. Instead, they would feed off of each other's fame, whether they liked it or not. This was fantastic for a time. They were invited to all the best parties, and romantic opportunities overflowed. But things would take a dark turn. The Brat Pack may sound glamorous at first, after all. It was made up of the most affluent Hollywood stars. However, it also connected them to unflattering traits, like unprofessionalism, brattishness, and misconduct. The negative associations with this group would haunt them, as their flaws and scandalous behavior would fuel the narrative that they were all a liability and not to be taken seriously in the industry. Like with many other child stars and famous young stars, the pressure and fame that came with the limelight would cause many of the Brat Pack to depend on illicit substances for comfort. Rob Lowe, Molly Ringwald, Andrew McCarthy, Demi Moore, Anthony Michael Hall, and Emilio Estevez are all members who were often in the headlines for their whispered alcohol and drug habits. The heavy partying reputation some of these stars had even managed to rub off on some of their more careful co-stars and contemporaries. For example, Molly Ringwald was never named as a starlet who indulged in illegal substances, but as a teen, she was romantically linked to her Breakfast Club co-star, Anthony Michael Hall, who was abusing alcohol as he rocketed into stardom. This is not a unique story, as Andrew McCarthy has since come forward with his own struggles with alcohol and drugs. He describes in his book, Brat, an 80's Story, his struggles to get sober and the realization that he was addicted to Xanax since he first started abusing it in the 90s. Perhaps it was hints of this trouble that David Blum saw when he first interviewed 3 of the Brat Pack members, Rob Lowe, Emilio Estevez, and Judd Nelson, who were having a great time at the Hard Rock Cafe during an interview. They were reportedly very lively, flirting outrageously with young women, and generally being a pack of rowdy young men with the world at their fingertips. This representation of partying privileged stars would follow them and their co-stars for their whole lives. One person who complained about this unfair portrayal was Judd Nelson. He was not the only one to disdain this association, but certainly one of the loudest. He is quoted as saying he would read his name alongside other members of this Brat Pack, cruising the streets of Los Angeles and going out on the town, all while he was minding his own business across the country in New York. He has even refused to take part in McCarthy's upcoming Hulu documentary about the Brat Pack, as he does not consider himself as one of them, claiming to have never even met some of them. However, not all the trouble stemmed solely from the wild partying of some of the core Brat Pack members. A lot of heartache and suffering came from the romances they fell into with each other and others. While Molly and Anthony Michael Hall shared a sweet love affair, they would soon break up but remain friends to this day. Others did not have this happy friendship from a failed first love. The terrible breakup between Emilio Estevez and Demi Moore would make headlines, which would cause Demi to spiral even deeper into her addiction, as she battled her loneliness and trust issues with substance abuse. This would not be the case with Emilio. Emilio Estevez was famous from a young age, and some today would call him a Nepo baby. He was not as affected by this influx of fame and attention, as he had grown up with the fickle attentions of the media since his birth, thanks to his father, Martin Sheen, who was a famous actor. He was quite the ladies' man growing up, his good looks and famous family adding a lot of glamour to his presence. For that reason, he was thought of as the leader of the Brat Pack. He just knew how to navigate life in the spotlight effortlessly. However, he seemed to grow up when he proposed to Demi Moore after 6 months of dating. They met on the set of the film St. Elmo's Fire. One small hiccup in this line of events is the slight overlap between his relationship with Demi Moore and his ex-girlfriend and the mother of his firstborn child, Carrie Sally. Their relationship had its ups and downs, but would come to a crashing halt when Demi learned that he had been seeing his ex-girlfriend Carrie behind her back. If things couldn't get worse, she would also learn that he was expecting another child with Carrie. At the time, Demi describes how her therapist was very blunt with her when she confessed all these dirty details of her personal life. Her therapist told her that normally they would allow her to come to realizations and epiphanies on her own, but in this case, they felt they needed to act quickly. Demi's therapist explained that if she went through with her marriage to Emilio, she would ruin her life. This intervention is what pushed Demi to break off the engagement with Emilio and go her own way. At the time, she was one of the most famous actresses in the business, and she would soon find herself in the arms of action star Bruce Willis. They would get married and start a family together. Not bad for a rebound. Surprisingly, the messy love affair between Emilio and Demi would not even come close to being the most scandalous and disastrous romance in the Brat Pack, as Rob Lowe would famously take that spot only a couple of years after that infamous New York Magazine interview. Rob Lowe was the teen heartthrob of the 1980s. There was no one as gorgeous or as famous at the time, and he fully enjoyed those perks. He had a great time partying and hooking up with beautiful women. Looking back, many people point to him as being the first celebrity to make a sex tape and have it leaked to the public. This is something that has made him the butt of many jokes over the decades since, and was a topic that was mocked during the Comedy Central roast of Rob Lowe. The sex tape was the scandal of 1989, made all the more lurid when details emerged that one of the two women on the tape was a 16-year-old girl who dropped out of high school. Filmed in 1988, the sex tape was censored and parts of it were aired on public news stations, as the public salivated for more details. 16-year-old Jan and 23-year-old Tara saw their whole lives come under scrutiny after they starred in Rob Lowe's homemade movie. Friends, family, and neighbors would be interviewed for details about the incident and their personal lives. This ill-fated threesome would eventually result in a court case against Lowe, who picked up the girls from an Atlanta nightclub. After their encounter, the girls would take the tape after their night with the movie star and allegedly tried to sell it. They would distribute it themselves after failing to sell the tape. The laws in Georgia declare that a person had to be at least 18 to be able to record pornography, and for this reason, Rob Lowe would be charged with sexual exploitation of a minor. If charged, he could have spent a decade in prison and a fine of $100,000. However, it did not come to this, as he managed to settle with John's family in court and did not have to serve any time. However, the embarrassment and charges are no small matter, and this would wreck Rob Lowe's career for a few years afterward. He would not get any work until 1992. Despite the terrible time he had in the judgmental gaze of the public today, Rob Lowe credits the sex tape for getting him sober. His sobriety would change his life and career for the better. He would get married not long after and start a family, which is still thriving today. To say that the careers of the Brat Pack suffered as a result of this shocking amount of attention at such a tender age would be an understatement. The overwhelming majority of them struggled with addiction and alcoholism, negatively impacting every relationship they had and damaging their reputations and careers. Looking through their personal histories, more than half of them have been divorced. Given their incredible talent and star power at their height, it is not difficult to imagine that they should have enjoyed a much more prosperous career, if not for all that press coverage and gossip flying around about them. Despite all the obstacles, they have all managed to make careers in the entertainment industry with great success.